Hello my friends all over the world, wherever you are. Today I'm making a garden harvest juice with mostly zucchini and cucumbers, a number of other greens and carrots. Let's look at the rest of my ingredients. Today for my greens I have one whole wild dandelion plant, some red Swiss chard, 2 celery plants, the tops from 4 beets, about 8 large zucchinis, about 8 cucumbers, 2 medium-sized beets, 155 grams of ginger, 1 garlic whole, and 135 grams of turmeric, plus French sorrel, and of course carrots. So let's start making some juice. Alright, before we start making juice, I want to point out that I'm using the front-loading feed tube that eliminates 100% of any blowback, and this is an exclusive design that you can purchase from Whole Health Foundation. I'm also using the near zero blowback cutter that has over 80 teeth cut into the cutter. This enables you to shred produce at 40 degrees Fahrenheit cooler. So let's install the cutter, and then I'm going to plug in the thermometer, and before I begin I'm going to feed in 3 or 4 ice cubes to cool down the cutter and the feed tube. I'm going to start with my French sorrel. Continue with the French sorrel. I'm going to continue with my French sorrel. Small clumps. Don't be tempted to put more in than you should. French sorrel. I'm done with my French sorrel and my Swiss chard, and I decided to put in some tomatoes. So let's do that now. But I'm going to have to cut them in quarters so they'll fit in the feed tube. I've had zucchinis grow as long as 1.5 feet long. Very important to pick them when you're young. Here's my last cucumber. We'll follow that with more zucchini. And now I'm going to start with my celery. Celery is very, very fibrous, so you'll have to put ice cubes in to cool down the cutter. We're still below 20. Anyway, because we know celery is fibrous. More celery. Here's a bad one. Now, as I said, greens are very fibrous, especially celery, so I'm going to clean my grid. You notice how I have the grid in the palm of my hand. You don't hold it like that. Put it in the palm of your hand, and you want to scrape, not slice. Reassemble and continue. And next, the beet tops. First I'm going to cut off anything that looks like dirt. More ice cubes and then we'll clean the grid. Next I'm going to switch to carrots. After my first 3 or 4 carrots, I'm going to clean this grid and then switch to the number 2 grid, which is smaller and better for carrots. So we'll set this aside, clean that later, and next we'll use the number 2 grid, 1/8 inch holes. And we'll continue with carrots. Now it looks like my bowl is getting over full. What I'm going to do now is mix the produce and transfer some of this into another container because I still have some more carrots to do. And I want to finish all of these prepared carrots. So let's make sure none of this overflows. Now one thing I want to point out, always wear rubber gloves. I've had some people say, well, I don't need rubber gloves. Well, I like to keep my hands clean and I like to use my gloves as I'm doing now as a spatula to keep the rim clean. So what I'm going to do now is use a 4-cup Pyrex container and transfer some of this pulp into a larger container. And that way I can finish the rest of my carrots. Let's continue. Here's the last of my carrots. Now whenever I get to the last of my carrots, here's one of the beautiful things I love about this front-loading feed tube. I can see in here that some of my produce is not shred yet. So what I'm going to do is take some carrot pulp, put it back in the feed tube and force that last plug of carrots through so that everything is shred. Next I'm going to mix this produce and start making juice after I clean my feed tube. Now every juicer purchased from Whole Health Foundation comes with a cleaning brush and a number of other supplies that are needed. Now what I have is a spray nozzle to clean this, but you can do it with a wet rag. Next I'll mix my produce and make some juice. It's always a good idea to spin your bowl in both directions because you get a better mix that way, as you can see. Now I've got my cloves out of the freezer, so I'm just going to crack them on the edge to make them easier to separate. And I'm going to show you my 6-cloth less work method. Next we'll fold our pulp into these cloths. I'm going to show you my less work 6-cloth method. I want to point out that you pull the container over your counter so these flaps do not touch the countertop. You never know how clean your counter is and you want to emphasize cleanliness. So 3 generous spoonsful of pulp, and we're going to fold this into thirds just like they came packaged. Flatten that, pull it into as tight a package as you can. Watch my folding technique. You put a little crease here to assist in your folding, and with your fingers pull this underneath into a tight package, set it aside, and continue. 3 scoops. Again in thirds, just like they came packaged. And I'm going to put these first 2 cloths full of pulp in the press, centered left to right. Make sure that the tray is on properly. Notice how you can reach in and adjust this if necessary. You want it right in the center, all the way back, back it off, turn on your machine. Let's put these grids back in and continue. Now when you're on your last cloth, advance that all the way. Here's my less work 6-cloth method. Pull that into a tight package. This goes forward, this goes over, the spent cloths go on top. 2 more cloths full of pulp in the press, centered left to right, centered front to back, all the way back, back it off a little bit. Now you're backing it off because you don't want that to go up too fast. Now, there are 2 methods in the less work 6-cloth method. One method is to leave the pulp in the cloth like this and put 2 scoops, not 3. Fold it in thirds, pull it into a tight package, flatten it, set it aside. The next method, if you have a puddle of juice in the tray, and I notice that I do, is to take your pulp, crush it up, and put it in the pulp, into the bowl, into the puddle, to absorb that juice in your collection bowl. And when you're on your last cloth again, advance that all the way. In this case, we're putting 3 scoops, not 2. Remember, this goes forward, that goes over. This is not fully pressed, so I'm going to set it back so it doesn't drip on my countertop, and then this is going to go into bottles. I'm going to fill these bottles from the back side so the camera gets a good shot, and I'm going to leave about 10% to add some water. And the reason I do that is juice is generally too concentrated for me. Now I'm down to my last 2 cloths full of pulp, and we'll put these in the tray and press out the juice. And again, very important to center it left to right, center it front to back, all the way back, back it off a little bit. And what I'm going to do with this spent pulp, to demonstrate how the Whole Health Foundation Premium Juicer with this premium bottom plate can make 10% more juice. 10% is a significant amount of juice. And the last 10% of your press is your most valuable juice in terms of nutrients. So watch my folding technique. I'm going to press it into a tight ball and fold it 2 or 3 times in both directions. Folding it under like so. Flatten it, set it aside. Let's advance that a little bit more. Now, as you can see, I have repackaged the spent pulp into 3 double packets. So what I'm going to do now is press the pulp again to show you how the Whole Health Foundation model with this solid bottom plate can get 10% more juice. And I'm going to use a measuring beaker to measure how much extra juice we can get. So let's put these 2 first cloths full of pulp, repackaged pulp. Now, very important to center this left to right, centered front to back, go all the way back, back it off a little bit. Now, so far I have 4 extra ounces of juice. As long as you have a steady stream, you can leave the press up. And because of this solid bottom plate, you can leave the press up indefinitely. There's a little more than 4 ounces. Now there we have 18 ounces so far. And my container is going to overflow, so what I'm going to do now is put this into the collection bowl, 18 ounces so far, and then we'll press more. As I said, as long as you have a steady flow, you can leave the press up indefinitely. There's another 12 ounces of juice. More like 13 by the time we're done. So there we have droplets now. Well, my friends, as you can see, I have 5, 10, 15, 20, 21 bottles of juice from this session. And remember that about 2.5 of these bottles came from pressing the already spent pulp. Sometimes you can get 10% more juice, sometimes as much as 15%, depending on the produce, and we have enough for a taste test. So let's do a taste test. Well, my friends, the taste test, the moment of truth. Well, it's very tasty, a tad on the bitter side, and that comes from the dandelion, and perhaps also from the Swiss chard that was going to seed. Usually when plants are going to seed, they're more bitter, and that's to discourage birds and animals from eating the seeds. Well, anyway, I hope you like what you've seen, my friends, and if you did, please tell a friend. If you'd like to telephone me, my phone number is 760-753-0321. My email address is developtrust@cox.net, and my webpage is wholehealthfound.com. I'll see you in the next video.